Um, the issue that we've run into here is an issue that the Blue Jays have run into in the past and other teams run into on a semi-regular basis. And that is, what do you do with starting pitching when pitchers go down or pitchers aren't performing? And there clearly there's no surplus of major league quality starting pitching. Almost never is. But did this team adequately prepare for that possibility or even inevitability when you look at the choices they have had from AAA?
Yeah. I think they're a little short. So, and maybe this is an unfair comparison, but when Tampa Bay was in Toronto last week, they had 10 players on the injured list, 2 on the restricted list, and 1 on the family medical emergency list. So they had 13 pitchers unavailable to them. They had 13 on the staff and made 3 roster moves during the series. So that in total is 29 different pitchers that could have, should have, might have been available to this team. And the 3 guys who came up, 27, 28, and 29, were okay. You know, like that's depth. That's what you need. Now, again, the Rays are better at it than any team in baseball. How they do it on a shoestring budget, I don't know. They're just really good at it. But for the Blue Jays, we've been talking about this more off the air than on the air the last couple of days. Like they hope Nate Pearson would be something, didn't happen this year. Julian Merriweather again. Ryan Baracki didn't work out, DFA him. He's now a Seattle Mariner. Thomas Hatch 2 years ago looked like he was going to be a guy, like a real guy. Didn't work out. Anthony Kay didn't work out. Trent Thornton was there, started more games than anybody else on the team 3 years ago, and he was destined to have a smaller role, but he's been up and down between the majors and the minors, pitching generally in low leverage. And then you get some the inevitable injuries as well, which every team is going to get. So I don't even want to say in hindsight, because everybody knows, you can't have enough pitching. So I think where they could have done more in the offseason is one more legitimate major league bullpen arm, like a Jimmy Garcia type, 7th, 8th innings, so another guy in there, and more depth, starting pitcher depth at Buffalo, so that the options that could have come up would have been a little bit better than they've been.
Yeah, and we're not being critical. We're being observational, really, here. I mean,
yeah. Well, they're not the only team that's run into this.
No,
obviously.
clearly,
So,
that's what I said, and I'm not blaming them necessarily, but you understand that fans, and to some extent us, tend to focus on the 25-man roster, the 5 starting pitchers, 2 or 3 key bullpen guys, and if you're happy with that, you think, oh, okay, we got a chance. But this is an inevitability on virtually every team. It is almost impossible to go through less than 7 or 8 starting pitchers over the course of a year. And while the bullpen is easier to bring guys in, I don't know whether it's easier to fix. Do you think it is?
So let me start with the starting pitching for a sec. So they have the injured Ryu and Stripling steps in, and Stripling's been really good.
Yep.
Like in my mind, Stripling's been better than a healthy Ryu might have been at this point of Ryu's career. The 2 issues in the rotation are Barrios has had a very up and down season for a guy who's been remarkably consistent. But what are you going to do other than his first year of a 7-year, $131 million deal? You got to assume this guy is going to be back to being who he's been. And then Kikuchi's obviously been the biggest problem in the rotation. And that's a tricky one. I don't know if this will make sense. I hope I word this correctly, but pretend Kikuchi didn't exist. Pretend Ross Stripling was the number 5 starter at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
And then that Stripling pitched how Kikuchi had pitched. Stripling's out of the rotation, right? They make that move. They find
100%.
Kikuchi's in the first year of a 3-year, $36 million deal. And that presents challenges that, whether we like it or not, they exist. So they're thin in the rotation, and fortunately Stripling is pitching well. I don't know if they can fix Kikuchi. They can skip them this week if they want, but that's just pushing the rock down the road, another week or 2. I think they got to go get somebody. Bullpens traditionally are the easiest things to fix in the middle of a season, right? Because you can go out and get a pretty good reliever who's in the last year of a contract without having to give up a Relvis Martinez or something like that. Last year they found Simber and Richards. Richards was really good last year, not as good this year. Simber's been great, and they got him for nothing. They got Simber and Corey Dickerson for Joe Panic and a minor leaguer. And Simber's been their second best reliever or third best reliever, Mesa in there too, over the last couple of years. So I think they can help the bullpen. The issue is I wish they could have done it already, but the trade deadline is still 3.5, 4 weeks away, and things generally don't heat up. I know they got Simber and Richards earlier last year. I wish they would have been able to do more already this year. But if you're any other general manager and Ross Atkins calls you, you know he is desperate right now, and you're going to ask for a ton. And if not, you're going to hang up the phone and hope that he calls you back in a couple of weeks. So they're working at a disadvantage trying to make trades now. But it's a hard way to win when you keep thinking, just get to the off date, just get to the All-Star break. That's a hard way to win enough games to make the playoffs in baseball.
Dan, I want to focus on Kikuchi for a second, because I think you're right. I mean, you don't want to overweight one singular player as the reason for something, but 3 years, $13 million, that's a significant investment. He had a really bad second half last year. And they were, I think, were gambling that was more of a that was an outlier, and the sort of the statistics beforehand were well, what he really is. Obviously, the velocity still there, et cetera. So here's what I want to ask you: there are teams and franchises, Yankees very famously, who can fix mistakes by sort of overspending to fix your mistake. Do you think the Blue Jays would be in a situation where, if they needed to acquire a starting pitcher, but part of that deal is they have to pay whatever the salary is, or the significant part of a salary? Do you think they do that? Because strategically, a lot of times how the big market teams fix their mistakes, and let's say Kikuchi right now is a mistake, you know what I mean? You overspend to basically fix your mistake.
Yep. I think they're discussing it. And so let's go back 16 months. They paid Tanner Roark to go away. He signed a 2-year, $24 million deal. First year did not go well, the short season. Last year, he either made 1 or 2 starts. It wasn't 3. It was 1 or 2 appearances, and he was gone, and he was at $12 million a year. So they ate, call it $11.5 million. Now, Kikuchi's 3 years, 36. It's front loaded. The first year 16, the next 2 years are 10 and 10. So let's say they've paid him 8 out of the 16 right now. They owe him $28 million. That's a lot of money. But you've got other options. You could put him in the bullpen. You could phantom IL him. I believe you can send him down to the minors. Somewhere I read that international players fall under a different set of rules, and there's no such thing as options. But I don't know that. My understanding is if they wanted to send him down, they could send him down. But I believe maybe there's, Scott Boras is his agent. Do you want to alienate the most powerful agent in the world? Which is, in some ways, isn't that the tail wagging the dog, but it's a real thing.